AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting. I, 34F, have always been close to my family, but things have been tense lately because of my sister, Emily, 32F. She's always been the more high-strung sibling, very controlling and particular about everything in her life, including her friends, her career, and now her wedding. I, on the other hand, am married with 2 children, ages 6 and 3, and I try to live a more relaxed, balanced life. I believe in teaching my kids responsibility and independence, but I'm not obsessed with perfection or appearances. Emily got engaged last year, and immediately the wedding planning began. She announced that she wanted a perfect, Instagram-worthy wedding, and that anyone attending must dress impeccably and behave perfectly. I thought it was a bit much, but I didn't comment. She then started sending me very specific instructions on what I could wear, what my kids could wear, and even what I should feed my children before the wedding so they wouldn't embarrass anyone. I tried to politely push back, suggesting that my kids might not sit quietly for 3 hours in formal attire, and that they should be allowed snacks and comfort as needed. Emily's response was surprisingly harsh. She said, "If you can't control your children, maybe you shouldn't bring them. I don't want crying, screaming, or anyone ruining my big day. People will talk, and I don't want your chaos overshadowing my wedding." I was stunned. First, it was my home, my parenting, and my children, and second, it was extremely insulting. I had always been a responsible parent, and while my kids are energetic and sometimes mischievous, I don't believe that's grounds for being banned from family events. I tried to compromise. I offered to hire a babysitter for my kids, but Emily refused, saying, "Then you won't be there, and I don't want anyone acting like you're just abandoning your children to attend my wedding. Either you bring them and control them, or don't come at all." Her tone made it clear this wasn't a conversation. It was a demand. The final straw came last month. We had a family dinner to celebrate her upcoming wedding. She brought up the topic of wedding planning, and without warning, she said, "Honestly, I don't understand how you raise your kids. I just don't get it. You let them run wild, they're loud, they're messy, and your house is chaos. I don't see how anyone tolerates it." She said this in front of my parents, my husband, and our children. My 6-year-old was visibly upset, and my 3-year-old started crying. I tried to remain calm and told her that her comment was hurtful and unnecessary, but she doubled down, saying, "I'm just being honest. People need to hear the truth." I left that dinner feeling embarrassed, angry, and upset. I realized that attending her wedding might be just as bad or worse. I tried to talk to our parents, hoping they would mediate, but they said, "Emily is just stressed. Maybe you should try harder to accommodate her wishes. It's her big day." I felt like I was being blamed for her behavior, and that made me even more upset. After much thought, I decided not to attend the wedding. I sent Emily a message explaining that I could not go because I felt disrespected and uncomfortable with how she had spoken about my parenting and my children. I tried to be as calm and polite as possible, saying that I loved her and wanted her to have a beautiful day, but I couldn't be part of an event where my children and I were treated as outsiders or nuisances. Her response was explosive. She called me selfish, immature, and accused me of ruining her wedding. She said I was overreacting and that I should just get over it, and then blocked me on social media. I haven't spoken to her since. Our parents are disappointed, though they haven't explicitly blamed me. My husband supports my decision, and my friends say I was right to stand up for myself and my children. Still, I feel guilty, because I know Emily is hurt, and she's lost the chance to have her sibling there on her wedding day. I've tried to consider whether I overreacted. Maybe I could have compromised more, like having a babysitter or leaving early, but I feel like Emily's attitude and insults made any compromise impossible. I also don't want my kids to be exposed to criticism and judgment on a day that's supposed to be celebratory. Since then, our family dynamics have been tense. Emily is refusing to speak to me, and our parents keep asking me to apologize or make peace. I feel like I shouldn't have to apologize for standing up for myself and protecting my kids from emotional harm. But part of me worries that I've permanently damaged my relationship with my sister and family. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting and refused to compromise. I tried to respect her wishes, but I felt her demands were unreasonable and her comments were hurtful. I don't want to be the villain in my own children's eyes or let someone publicly shame them, even for a perfect wedding. Has anyone been in a situation like this where attending an event meant sacrificing personal dignity or family respect? How did you handle it? I feel torn between family loyalty and protecting myself and my children. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my adult daughter move back home after she quit her job, which caused a huge family argument. I, 42F, have an adult daughter, Sophie, 24F, who has always been bright and creative but also impulsive and not great at thinking through consequences. She graduated college 2 years ago and immediately got a decent entry-level job in marketing. Initially, she seemed happy and settled, but over the past year she started expressing dissatisfaction with her work, saying she felt unfulfilled and that the office environment was toxic. I encouraged her to address issues professionally or look for a new job before quitting, but she insisted she couldn't handle it anymore and resigned without having anything lined up. A few days after quitting, Sophie called me upset, saying she couldn't afford rent and asked if she could move back in temporarily until she got back on her feet. My husband, Alex, 45M, and I have 2 younger children, ages 9 and 6, and our household runs on strict routines. Meals, homework, and bedtime are structured, and adding an adult who has no income, no plan, and a history of depending on family would disrupt everything. I told Sophie that moving in permanently or even for an extended period was not an option, but I offered alternatives. I offered financial assistance for a short-term rental, help with grocery expenses, resume updates, job search guidance, and budgeting advice. I wanted to support her without creating long-term tension or disrupting our family routines. Sophie reacted poorly. She said that family should step up in times of crisis and accused me of being cold and unsupportive. She claimed that my refusal showed I cared more about comfort and control than her well-being. I reminded her that I had provided guidance and resources that would help her regain independence quickly, and that moving back home could easily become an indefinite arrangement based on previous patterns. The situation escalated when Sophie involved my parents. They immediately sided with her, saying I should let her move in and that refusing her was heartless. I tried to explain that I was not refusing to help, but that I wanted to offer constructive solutions that would actually allow her to regain independence while keeping my household stable. I reminded them that Sophie has a history of relying on family for extended periods, often causing stress and conflict. My parents dismissed this and said I was prioritizing convenience over family loyalty. The conflict came to a head during a family gathering. Sophie confronted me directly, saying I was punishing her for being an adult and that I was being controlling and unkind. She insisted that moving in with me was the only acceptable way to support her and claimed I didn't love her because I refused. My parents reinforced her argument, saying I should compromise for the sake of family harmony. My husband tried to explain that having an adult with no income in the house could disrupt routines, create stress for the children, and escalate into long-term tension. Sophie dismissed him, saying we were overreacting and that family support should outweigh household structure. Some extended family members tried to mediate. They suggested compromises, like letting Sophie stay in the basement or guest room for a week or 2. I explained that even a short-term stay could easily extend indefinitely and create ongoing conflict, based on her previous behavior. I also emphasized that I had already offered practical alternatives that didn't involve moving in but would help her regain stability. Sophie refused any solution that didn't involve moving in and claimed that my alternatives were inadequate. After the confrontation, Sophie left angrily and has since sent passive-aggressive messages implying that I don't care about her or family. My parents remain upset and have expressed disappointment, saying I should have just given in and that my refusal caused unnecessary emotional harm. Some extended family members support me, recognizing the stress and disruption hosting an adult with no income could cause, while others criticize me for not doing enough. Family gatherings have become tense, and the conflict has lingered for weeks. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing the stability of my household, the well-being of my children, and my husband's peace of mind, while still offering practical ways to help Sophie. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with Sophie and my parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide support without compromising my household, but my offers were rejected and misinterpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but past experience makes me worry that even a brief stay could extend indefinitely and create more conflict. I also fear that letting her move in would reinforce a pattern of dependency and prevent her from learning responsibility. I genuinely want to support Sophie, but I cannot jeopardize my household, children's routines, or my husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my adult daughter move back in after she quit her job, even though it caused a massive family conflict and upset my parents. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé have a say in our family tradition. I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger brother, Jason, 29M. Growing up, we had this quirky but meaningful family tradition. Every year, we host a memory night at our parents' house. The night involves each family member sharing a story from the past year, big or small, happy or sad, funny or poignant. After that, we have a sort of informal awards ceremony where we recognize each other for things like biggest achievement, funniest moment, or most thoughtful gesture. It's not serious or formal, but it's deeply sentimental for us. Our parents, now in their mid-60s, started it when we were kids, and it's been a central event in our family calendar ever since. Jason has been engaged for about 6 months to a woman named Samantha, 28F. I met her a handful of times, and honestly, I think she's pleasant enough. She's smart, career-focused, and outgoing, but there's been this underlying tension between her and my family from the start. She often makes jokes that feel a little too sharp or dismissive about our traditions. And while I try to brush it off, my parents and I have noticed it. This year, as usual, my parents invited everyone over for memory night. Jason called me a few weeks ago saying, Samantha has some ideas she wants to implement for memory night, and I think it could be fun. I asked what she meant, and he explained that Samantha wants to turn it into more of a party event with games, prizes for unrelated things, and even a professional photographer to document everything. Essentially, she wants to shift the focus from our family's personal memories to a more polished, Instagram-worthy event. I told him that while I appreciated her enthusiasm, memory night is not meant to be a spectacle. It's a family tradition that's very personal and meaningful to us. I also explained that adding professional photographers and turning it into a party would feel completely different from what we've always cherished. Jason said, I know, but it's just 1 year. We could try it out. It's not a big deal. I refused, saying that the tradition is too important to be changed for one person, even for 1 year. Things got tense after that. Jason called me again a few days later, saying that Samantha was upset because she felt excluded from the tradition. She reportedly said, It's like you all have this secret club, and I'm the outsider. It's not fair. I tried to reassure Jason that it's not about excluding her. It's about preserving something that's been in our family for decades. I also suggested that she could start her own tradition or have a say in a different family event that's more open to change, but memory night is not the place to experiment. Fast forward to last week. Jason and Samantha came to our parents' house for memory night. Samantha arrived with a big tote bag full of decorations, a portable projector, and a camera tripod. She immediately started trying to rearrange the room, putting up streamers and setting up a photo booth corner. My parents were polite, but clearly uncomfortable. I quietly told Samantha, Hey, We really appreciate your effort, but this is our tradition. Can we just keep it simple like we always do?" She huffed and said, "I'm just trying to make it more fun for everyone." I tried to explain that fun in this context is different. It's about shared memories, not flashy decorations or prizes. During the storytelling portion, Samantha interrupted at least twice to suggest we take group photos or award extra funniest story points for Instagram votes. It completely broke the flow of the evening. My parents were trying to steer it back to the usual format, and I was getting frustrated, so I finally said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Samantha, I think we need to respect the tradition here. This isn't about you or changing the format. It's about keeping something that matters to our family intact. If you want, you can help with setup for another family event, but tonight is memory night, as it's always been." Samantha looked shocked and upset, and Jason tried to mediate, saying, "Come on, let's just make it a little different this year. It's fine." I responded firmly, "It's not fine. I'm sorry, but some things are not up for negotiation." The rest of the night continued in a tense atmosphere. Samantha mostly stayed silent, and I felt bad for my brother because he was clearly torn between us and his fiancée. After the event, my parents told me they agreed with me, but Jason sent me a long text later that night. He said, "You really embarrassed Samantha tonight. She feels like you don't want her in the family at all. Maybe you're overreacting. Traditions can evolve, you know." I didn't reply immediately because I needed to cool off, but after thinking about it, I wrote back that traditions are meaningful because they're consistent and that we can evolve them slowly and consensually, but not by overriding the whole point in one night. Now, Jason is upset with me. He says I was rude and disrespectful to Samantha in front of everyone, and that I'm making it hard for him to feel comfortable at family events. My parents think I handled it correctly, but Jason has blocked me on social media and hasn't returned my calls since memory night. I feel like I'm protecting something important, but I also feel guilty that this caused a rift with my brother. I don't want to alienate Samantha entirely, but I also don't want to compromise on something that's been a meaningful family tradition for decades. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée change our family tradition, even though it upset her and caused tension between my brother and me. AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she disrespected my fiancé in front of my family. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, her behavior became increasingly manipulative and selfish. I've always tried to maintain boundaries, but sometimes family gatherings feel like navigating a minefield with her. My fiancé, Jake, 30M, has never had a problem with her, but she has a history of being passive-aggressive, especially when she feels like she's being ignored or left out. A few months ago, Jake and I got engaged. We were thrilled and immediately started planning our wedding. From the beginning, I wanted it to be a small, intimate event, mostly family and a few close friends. My parents were supportive, my other siblings were on board, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, when we told Emily about the engagement, her reaction was unsettling. Instead of congratulating us, she made a series of comments that were borderline insulting. She told me that she hoped Jake wasn't just another guy passing through, and questioned whether I'd thought about how marriage would affect my career. I tried to brush it off and reminded myself that she often acts this way. The real issue started when we invited her to help with some wedding planning. I thought maybe including her in some minor decisions would help her feel involved and reduce tension. Big mistake. She began to criticize everything: the color scheme, the guest list, the venue, and even the catering. She insisted that her ideas were superior and frequently said things like, "If I were planning this, it would be perfect." I tried to explain that this wedding was about Jake and me, not her, but she didn't take the hint. She even went as far as to suggest that my parents should reconsider their budget because the venue I picked was too cheap and reflected poorly on the family. I felt my blood boil, but I kept my composure. A week before the final seating arrangements were due, we invited Emily over to discuss her role in the wedding. Jake and I were nervous, but wanted to give her one last chance to behave. Everything seemed fine until my mom suggested that Emily might want to give a toast. That's when she completely lost it. Emily turned to Jake and said, "Honestly, I don't know why you're marrying her. She's so predictable. You could do better, but I guess you're desperate." Everyone went silent. My mom and dad looked shocked, and Jake froze. I was furious. I don't usually yell, but in that moment, I stood up and told her that if she couldn't show basic respect, she wasn't welcome at the wedding. Emily stormed out, leaving everyone uncomfortable and upset. My parents were divided. My dad agreed with me, saying that Jake should not be disrespected in our own home, but my mom felt that I overreacted. Jake, thankfully, was very supportive and said that he didn't want anyone at our wedding who didn't treat him with respect. Since then, Emily has been messaging me constantly. She says I ruined her relationship with the family, that I'm controlling, and that she has a right to be there. She even threatened to stop speaking to my parents if they attended without her. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but it's causing tension because my mom wants her there and my dad agrees with me. I've thought long and hard about this. I love my sister, but I cannot in good conscience invite someone who has verbally attacked my fiancé in our home and shown zero respect for our relationship. I have a feeling that if I do, she will try to manipulate the day or embarrass Jake in front of everyone. I want my wedding to be about celebrating our love, not dealing with drama. My friends have been supportive, saying I'm protecting my boundaries, but some family members say I'm being unreasonable and that family should be invited no matter what. Jake and I are considering moving forward with a smaller wedding without her, but I can't shake the guilt that I might be alienating my sister permanently. So, AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she disrespected my fiancé in front of my family. I know weddings can be emotional and tricky, but this feels like a clear boundary to me. I just don't know if I'm being fair or if I'm overreacting. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where a family member tried to sabotage a wedding? I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to compromise my fiancé's dignity or my own peace of mind. This has caused months of tension, and now that the wedding is only 2 months away, the pressure is building. I've considered therapy to help navigate this, but I still have to make a decision about the guest list. Any advice or perspective would be appreciated, especially from those who have faced similar family drama. I feel torn between wanting to protect my wedding day and not wanting to permanently damage my relationship with Emily. Every time I think about inviting her back in, I remember her words to Jake and how she made the entire family uncomfortable. At the same time, I worry that cutting her out entirely will make her resent me forever. Jake keeps reminding me that our wedding is about us, and he doesn't want anyone there who would threaten the joy of the day. He even said he'd back me no matter what my family thinks. My parents are still trying to mediate, but the tension has reached a point where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I've tried to communicate with Emily calmly, explaining that her behavior was unacceptable and that I need to see genuine remorse before considering inviting her back. She refuses to apologize and insists that I am overreacting to normal teasing. I've explained that this was more than teasing. It was a direct attack on my fiancé and our relationship, but she doesn't seem to get it. I know that no matter what I do, someone will be unhappy. If I uninvite her, some family members might see me as cold or unfair. If I invite her, I risk an emotional disaster at the wedding. I want my day to be filled with love and happiness, not tension and passive aggression. So, Reddit AITA for standing firm on my decision to not invite my sister to my wedding after she verbally attacked my fiancé, even though it might upset my family and potentially permanently damage my relationship with her. I feel like I'm justified, but the guilt is overwhelming, and I want to make sure I'm not being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she burned bridges with everyone. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I work a stable job in tech, own my home, and have a relatively quiet life. My sister, Jess, 29F, has always been the free spirit type. She moves around a lot, takes risks, and sometimes makes decisions that seem reckless to me. While I try not to judge, our personalities are really different, which has caused tension over the years. Recently, though, things escalated in a way I wasn't expecting. A little backstory. Jess has a history of making impulsive financial choices. She's declared bankruptcy twice, gotten into bad relationships, and has a tendency to burn bridges wherever she goes. A few years ago, she had a job that she left after only 6 months because she didn't like the manager, and she moved across the country without telling anyone. She's also had some conflict with other family members. She had a huge falling out with our parents over money, and she hasn't spoken to our cousins in over a year. Fast forward to last month. Just called me out of the blue. She sounded frantic, crying, and I could tell she was desperate. She had been living in a city far from us and had lost her apartment because of unpaid rent. Her friends couldn't help her either, and she said she had nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay with me while she got back on her feet. I hesitated. I love my sister, but I've been through her temporary moves before, and they never were temporary. Last time she stayed with me for a month, she ended up staying for 6 months and left my house in disarray. I reminded her of this and suggested she look into short-term rentals, or I could help her financially without her moving in. Jess said no. She didn't want to stay in a hotel or pay for an Airbnb. She just wanted a home and someone to support her while she figured things out. I told her that my home is my sanctuary, and I wasn't comfortable letting her move in. I explained that I'm working full-time, have my own responsibilities, and past experiences had made me hesitant. I also mentioned the bridges she's burned with friends and family, how I could see the pattern repeating if she moved in with me. She was hurt and accused me of being selfish. She said I was her only family willing to help, and that everyone else had turned their backs on her. Over the next week, Jess started sending me messages almost daily, pleading with me, trying to guilt me into changing my mind. She brought up childhood memories, family dinners, and all the times I had helped her before. She even threatened, indirectly, that if I didn't let her stay, she might have to sleep in her car or go to shelter. I felt torn because I hate seeing her in distress, but I also felt like I couldn't let her into my life again under these circumstances. I finally told her no firmly. I explained again that I could help her in ways that didn't involve her moving in, like giving her some financial support to cover an Airbnb, helping her apply for jobs, or even helping her look for roommates. I told her that letting her move in would not be healthy for either of us, and I couldn't risk enabling a pattern that had repeatedly caused problems in the past. Jess lost it. She started posting on social media about how I had abandoned her, framing me as a villain in her story. Several mutual friends reached out to me, asking what was going on. My parents also called to ask if I had considered helping her. They were clearly frustrated at the idea of her moving in with me, but didn't want to take sides openly. Things escalated further when Jess showed up at my house one evening unannounced. She was visibly upset, and she pleaded again, saying she had no other options. I refused to open the door. I could hear her crying outside, and it broke my heart, but I stayed inside. I called the police just to make sure there was a record in case she tried to force her way in, and they advised me to remain calm and not engage. After that, Jess's messages became increasingly hostile. She accused me of being cruel, selfish, and a terrible sister. I haven't responded since. I've been struggling with guilt, even though logically I know I made a decision that's best for both of us. My friends say I'm justified, but part of me feels like I failed my sister in her time of need. I've also been worried about family dynamics. Our parents are now upset with me for not helping family in need, and some extended family members are taking her side on social media. I feel like I'm being painted as cold and uncaring. At the same time, I've seen how enabling her pattern of behavior in the past hasn't helped her. It just delays her dealing with her own life. I am conflicted. I hate that my sister is struggling, and I wish I could help her more, but I also feel like I have a right to protect my home and my mental health. I keep wondering if I should have let her stay for a short period, even if it risked tension, or if I was right to stand my ground. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she burned bridges with almost everyone in her life. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she got evicted, which caused a huge family fight. I, 38F, have a younger sister, Emma, 32F, who has always been charming and smart, but also impulsive and not very good with money. Over the years, I've tried to support her in small ways, but she often relies on family for major life decisions and financial help. She has had a series of unstable jobs and living situations, and while I love her, I've learned that enabling her often makes things worse in the long run. A few weeks ago, Emma called me in a panic. She and her boyfriend had been evicted from their apartment because they fell behind on rent and ignored warnings from their landlord. They asked if they could move in with me temporarily until they figured out a new place. My husband, Mark, 40M, and I live in a house with our 2 kids, ages 7 and 5, and we have very structured routines. Meals, school schedules, and bedtime are all set up carefully. Adding 2 adults with no income and a history of instability immediately felt overwhelming. I told Emma and her boyfriend that they could not move in permanently or even for an extended period, but I offered other ways to help. I said I could contribute to a short-term rental, help them find a new apartment, assist with job searches, and help them manage a budget so they could regain independence. I emphasized that I wanted to support them, but could not jeopardize my household or my children's stability. Emma reacted poorly. She argued that family should step up in times of crisis and accused me of being selfish and uncaring. She insisted that refusing to let them move showed a lack of compassion. I reminded her that I had offered substantial support that did not involve moving into our home, but she dismissed it, saying nothing else would solve their problem as quickly. The situation escalated when Emma called our parents to complain. They immediately sided with her, saying I should let her move in and that refusing was cruel. I tried to explain that I was not refusing to help, but offering practical alternatives that would allow them to regain stability without disrupting my household. I reminded them of past instances where Emma stayed with family temporarily and ended up ignoring rules and overstaying, creating tension. My parents accused me of being harsh and said I was prioritizing convenience over family loyalty. The conflict came to a head at a family gathering. Emma confronted me directly, claiming I was punishing her for making mistakes and that I was being controlling and unkind. She argued that family obligations should override household rules and convenience. My parents reinforced her argument, saying I should compromise for the sake of family harmony. Mark tried to intervene, explaining that having 2 adults with no income living in our house could disrupt routines, create stress for our children, and potentially escalate into long-term conflict. Emma dismissed his concerns and continued insisting that moving in with us was the only acceptable solution. Some extended family members attempted to mediate. A few suggested compromises, such as letting Emma and her boyfriend stay in the basement or a spare room for a few days. I explained that even short-term stays could quickly turn into weeks or months given their past behavior. I also emphasized that I had already offered practical alternatives that did not involve moving in, which would help them regain independence. Emma and her boyfriend refused any solution that didn't involve living with us. After the confrontation, they left angrily. They have since sent passive-aggressive messages implying I don't care about them or family. My parents continue to express disappointment, saying I should have just given in to avoid family tension. Some extended relatives sympathize with me, recognizing the stress and potential disruption of hosting 2 adults with no income, while others criticize me for not doing enough. Family gatherings have become tense, and the conflict has lingered for weeks. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing the stability of my household, my children's well-being, and my husband's peace of mind, while still offering practical ways to help Emma and her boyfriend. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with Emma, her boyfriend, and my parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide support without compromising my household, but my efforts were rejected and interpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but past experience makes me worry that even a brief stay could extend indefinitely and create more conflict. I also fear that allowing them to move in would reinforce a pattern of dependency and prevent them from taking responsibility. I genuinely want to support Emma, but I cannot jeopardize my household, children's routines, or my husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her boyfriend move in after they were evicted, even though it caused a massive family fight and upset our parents. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after our family vacation disaster. I, 32F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 29F. We grew up with our parents being a little overprotective, so we naturally became each other's support system. As adults, we live in the same city and often hang out, but we also have our own lives. I've always been known as the responsible one in our family, and my sister tends to be a little more spontaneous and free-spirited. That dynamic has mostly worked out well, but it's become a source of tension recently. Emily started dating a new guy, Ryan, 31M, about a year ago. I met him a few times and, honestly, didn't feel a strong connection. He seems like a decent person on the surface, but I've noticed some red flags that made me uneasy, like his tendency to overshare personal details with strangers, his habit of trying to manipulate conversations to make himself look better, and a general lack of responsibility when it comes to work and money. I try to keep my reservations to myself because I didn't want to hurt my sister's feelings, but I kept a watchful eye on him. About 3 months ago, Emily invited Ryan to join us on our family summer vacation. Our parents, Emily, Ryan, and I were planning a week-long trip to a beach house we've rented every summer for the last decade. I agreed to go, although I was a little hesitant about Ryan's inclusion. I had hoped he would just blend in without causing problems. The first couple of days went surprisingly okay. Ryan made an effort to fit in, and at first, I thought maybe I had judged him too harshly. But then things started unraveling. On the third day, he decided to take over planning one of our excursions without consulting anyone. He booked a boat tour for all of us, but failed to check if everyone had the necessary life jackets or if there were age restrictions for certain water activities. My parents were irritated but tried to be polite. I quietly handled the missing equipment issue, but it was stressful. That night, Ryan got drunk and started making comments about how the house should be his responsibility since he contributed to the vacation by paying for part of the groceries. He also criticized my parents' choice of restaurants and their vacation schedule, claiming he could do better. Emily seemed uncomfortable but didn't say much. I ended up spending the night calming down my parents, who were frustrated and exhausted. The following day, Ryan somehow convinced Emily to go on a separate excursion with just him, leaving the rest of us to handle lunch in the house. They returned late, arguing about something trivial, and Ryan was sulking for the rest of the evening. He later tried to recruit me into taking his side, which I refused. By day 5, he had accidentally damaged part of the beach house. He knocked over a table and broke the leg, leaving it wobbly. He tried to downplay it, saying it was not a big deal, but my father was visibly angry. The breaking point was the last night of the vacation. Ryan had somehow eaten all of the snacks we had carefully packed for the week, including some treats my parents had bought for their anniversary. When confronted, he shrugged and said he thought everyone would be okay with it. That was it for me. I realized that his lack of consideration, responsibility, and maturity wasn't going to change. A week after the vacation, Emily called me and asked if Ryan could move in temporarily. She explained that he had been having financial issues and needed a place to stay while he got back on his feet. I paused because I knew from experience that temporarily often stretches into months. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it. I explained that his behavior during our vacation made me worry about how he would act in my home and how it might impact my mental health. I offered to help him find affordable housing or look into temporary rentals, but I drew the line at letting him live with me. Emily got upset and accused me of being harsh and unsupportive. She said I was overreacting because he's really trying and just had a rough patch. I reminded her that trying isn't the same as respecting others' space or being responsible. She brought up that our parents might be disappointed in me for not helping, which I don't think is fair. My parents have always emphasized personal boundaries. She also mentioned that Ryan has been kind of depressed and that I was adding to his stress by refusing to let him stay. After this conversation, Emily stopped speaking to me for a week. When she finally reached out, she was passive-aggressive, hinting that I was selfish and not family-oriented. I tried to explain calmly that while I care about her and want her to be happy, inviting someone with a track record of irresponsibility into my home is not safe or reasonable. She said I didn't trust her judgment and that I was playing God with her relationships. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. Our parents have tried to mediate, but Emily is still upset, and Ryan keeps texting me, apparently confused about why I won't just let him stay. My friends and coworkers are split. Some say I'm justified in protecting my home and boundaries, while others think I'm being too rigid and not helping family in need. I feel stuck. I want to maintain a relationship with my sister, but I also want to preserve my peace and not put my mental health at risk. I'm wondering if I'm really the asshole here for refusing to let her boyfriend move in, especially after everything that happened during our family vacation. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after our family vacation disaster. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened with my parents. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially my parents. My sister, Emily, 32F, is a year older than my boyfriend, so she and I grew up somewhat close, but I've always felt like the second choice. Our parents, particularly my mother, have a pattern of favoring Emily, and I'm only now realizing how deeply it's affected me. For context, I've struggled with anxiety and self-esteem issues for most of my adult life, largely stemming from feeling invisible in my family. Despite this, I've always tried to maintain a relationship with them, even when it's hurtful. Emily got engaged last year, and my parents immediately went into full wedding planning mode, which is understandable. They started making decisions about the wedding very early, from the venue to the guest list, and I was invited to help with some planning as her maid of honor. At first, I was excited. I thought this could be an opportunity to reconnect with my sister and possibly heal some old wounds with my parents. But almost immediately, things began to feel off. First, my parents started pushing me to take on responsibilities that weren't in my job description. I was expected to help plan the bridal shower, organize a bachelorette party, handle all communications with distant relatives, and coordinate the welcome bag for the hotel rooms. Every time I tried to suggest alternatives or share my own ideas, they dismissed them. My mother would often say things like, "You don't understand, this is how it's always been done," or "Emily needs this to be perfect, don't mess it up." It felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. I started feeling like I was just a tool to make my sister's day perfect while my needs and boundaries were completely ignored. Things escalated when I tried to set limits on my time. I have a full-time job and freelance projects I've been building for years, which I was upfront about. I told my mom that I could help with planning, but I couldn't drop everything at a moment's notice. Her response was infuriating. She accused me of being selfish, uncaring, and even said, "If you loved Emily, you'd make sacrifices for her special day." My father backed her up, which made me feel like I was trapped between defending myself and disappointing my family. I tried to explain that helping doesn't mean burning out or ignoring my own life, but they weren't hearing it. The tipping point came when the wedding invitations were sent out. My parents insisted I invite a distant cousin I haven't spoken to in years. I told them I didn't want to, explaining that it would be awkward and uncomfortable for me to host them in my apartment or coordinate their travel. My mother responded by saying, "You're making this about you, as usual. Emily's wedding is not the time for your feelings." At this point, I realized that nothing I did would be enough, and every decision I made was being reframed as a personal attack or a sign of selfishness. Meanwhile, Emily seemed oblivious to all of this. She expressed appreciation in vague terms, but never addressed the stress I was under or the way my parents were treating me. I tried talking to her privately, telling her how overwhelmed I felt and that I wanted to be involved in a way that didn't compromise my mental health. Her response was that I was overreacting and that the wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event, so I should just deal with it. I felt completely unsupported and invisible, and I started questioning why I was even trying to be part of a celebration that made me miserable. About a month before the wedding, I realized I was having frequent panic attacks, insomnia, and constant anxiety just thinking about attending. It was affecting my work, my relationships, and my general health. I had to make a choice: keep pushing myself to meet my parents' and sister's expectations, or step back for the sake of my well-being. I chose the latter. I called my sister and told her that I couldn't attend the wedding in person. I explained that I loved her, I wanted her to have a wonderful day, but my mental health couldn't handle the added stress and family pressure. I also wrote to my parents, explaining my reasons calmly, emphasizing that it wasn't about Emily personally, but about the toxic environment surrounding the planning process. The reaction was devastating. My mother accused me of ruining Emily's special day, called me ungrateful, and said that Emily would be heartbroken. My father called me selfish and childish. Emily herself was extremely upset. She cried, told me she didn't understand, and asked why I couldn't just put her happiness above my own discomfort. Her fiancé seemed confused, but was supportive of my choice, saying he hoped we could reconcile after the wedding. My extended family has also expressed disappointment, and some have suggested I attend the wedding after all for family unity. Since then, the fallout has been intense. I've received guilt trips, passive-aggressive messages, and even some family members threatening to cut me out entirely. My own mental health has suffered, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I prioritize myself without giving in to family pressure. I know my decision hurt my sister and my parents, but I also know that attending would have caused me serious emotional harm. I feel stuck because part of me wonders if I'm overreacting or if I should have found some compromise. Could I have attended just the ceremony and skipped the reception? Should I have tried harder to mediate with my parents? I'm also worried about the long-term impact on my relationship with my sister. I don't want to lose her entirely, but I also can't sacrifice my mental health for a day that is supposed to celebrate her. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how my parents treated me during the planning process. I know my choice has hurt her and upset my family, but I honestly believe that attending would have done more damage to me than good. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's pet surgery, even though she says I'm being unsupportive. I, 37F, have a friend, Lily, 36F, who I've known since college. We've always been close, sharing holidays, birthdays, and even trips abroad. Over the years, we've supported each other through breakups, job changes, and family crises. She has a dog, a golden retriever named Max, whom she loves dearly. I like Max too, but I don't have pets of my own, and I'm careful about how I spend money on animals because I already have significant financial obligations. A few weeks ago, Lily called me in tears. Max had been diagnosed with a serious medical condition that required surgery costing around $5,500. She told me that she didn't have the full amount and asked if I could cover the surgery, promising to pay me back over the next year. I was shocked and upset because $5,500 is a substantial sum, and lending it would put me in a tight financial position. I explained that I couldn't lend her the full amount, but I offered alternatives, helping her research veterinary financing, applying for pet care loans, finding charitable organizations or crowdfunding options, or helping negotiate a payment plan with her vet. Lily reacted poorly. She accused me of being cold, selfish, and unsupportive, saying that if I truly cared about her or Max, I would help without hesitation. She implied that our friendship was being measured by how much I was willing to spend on her pet, and that refusing was a betrayal. I reminded her that my refusal wasn't about not caring. It was about protecting my own financial stability. I also said that helping her in practical ways, like exploring financing options, could be just as supportive and sustainable. The next few days were tense. Lily repeatedly messaged me, guilt-tripping and insisting that I could afford it and that a true friend wouldn't hesitate. She said that other friends would have just helped and that I was failing as a supportive friend. I tried to reiterate my offers, helping her fundraise, researching low-interest loans, and negotiating payments with the vet. She dismissed these suggestions as unnecessary effort and kept asking for the money directly. Some mutual friends have weighed in. A few think I should just lend her the money to avoid damaging our friendship, while others agree that setting boundaries and refusing such a large financial risk is reasonable. I feel conflicted because I want to support her and help Max, but I also cannot take on financial risk that could jeopardize my own obligations. I also worry that lending this money would create long-term tension if she is delayed in repayment. I considered compromise. I thought about lending a smaller amount, like $1,500 to $2,000, or helping her fund part of the surgery, while she explores other funding sources for the rest. However, she rejected this, saying it wouldn't be enough to cover the surgery and that she needed the full amount immediately. She insisted that if I cared about her or Max, I would find a way. I also considered co-signing a vet financing plan, but I worried about liability if she missed payments. Since refusing, Lily has been distant and curt in our messages. She has posted on social media about friends who don't have your back and turn their back when you need them most, which I know refers to me. I've tried to maintain contact, offer guidance, and help her explore funding options, but she dismisses any support that doesn't involve me giving her the full amount. I feel guilty because I care about Lily and want Max to get the care he needs, but I also know that giving her $5,500 outright could create tension, financial strain, and resentment. I'm trying to help in ways that are sustainable and safe for both of us, but she interprets any limitation as a moral failing or lack of care. I also feel frustrated that she equates financial support with emotional support, ignoring the practical help I've already offered. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's dog's surgery. Even though she says I'm being unsupportive and others think I should compromise, I feel like I'm trying to balance friendship, practicality, and financial responsibility, but she interprets any refusal as a personal slight. This situation has caused tension between us and among mutual friends. I want to maintain the friendship and help Max get the care he needs, but I cannot compromise my own finances. I'm trying to find a way to be supportive without enabling financial risk or creating potential resentment, but standing firm feels like the only responsible and sustainable option. I hope there's a way to help Lily and Max practically and emotionally without giving the full amount. But right now, any refusal seems to be interpreted as betrayal. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment. I, 33F, have a cousin, Sarah, 30F, who I've been close to since childhood. We grew up together, spent holidays with each other, and have supported each other through school, jobs, and relationships. We have always been close, but our adult lives are very different. I have a stable job as a software engineer, live alone in a modest but comfortable apartment, and prioritize routines, quiet, and organization to maintain my mental health. Sarah, on the other hand, has struggled with stability. She's had inconsistent employment, frequently moved apartments, and occasionally made impulsive financial decisions that have caused her to fall behind on rent. A few days ago, Sarah called me in tears. She had just been evicted from her apartment because she hadn't been able to keep up with rent. She said she had nowhere else to go and asked if she could move in with me temporarily until she figured out her next steps. She promised it would only be a few weeks and that she would respect my space, follow my rules, and not interfere with my work. I care about her and wanted to help, but I immediately felt uneasy. From past experience, I know that temporary stays with Sarah often turn into months, and my apartment is small. Having her move in could disrupt both my personal life and my work. I told her I couldn't have her live with me. I explained that my apartment is small, I work from home, and I rely on a predictable routine to maintain my mental health. I also offered alternatives, helping her find a short-term rental or Airbnb, contributing to temporary lodging, contacting friends who might host her for a night or two, or assisting with her apartment search. I try to emphasize that my refusal wasn't about a lack of care, but about protecting my home and mental well-being. Sarah reacted badly. She accused me of being selfish and uncaring. She said that family is supposed to help each other in times of crisis, and that I was the only person she could trust. She argued that refusing to let her stay was cruel and that I was putting my comfort above our relationship. I reminded her that refusing doesn't mean I don't care and that I was willing to help in ways that didn't compromise my living situation. She insisted that nothing else would be enough and continued to push for me to let her move in. Over the next few days, Sarah started contacting me constantly. She would send long messages detailing her predicament, sometimes multiple times a day, and would call repeatedly. Her messages made me feel anxious and stressed, which affected my work and sleep. I tried to respond politely, reiterating the alternative solutions I was offering, but she continued to insist that moving in was the only acceptable solution. I considered compromise. I thought about letting her stay for a single night or letting her leave some belongings temporarily while she looked for another place. But even short-term arrangements could easily extend, and her history of overstaying temporary stays made me worry that it would become a long-term problem. I also worried about the emotional consequences. Sarah can be very emotional under stress, and having her in my apartment could lead to tension, arguments, or passive-aggressive behavior, potentially damaging our relationship permanently. Friends and family have given me mixed advice. Some say I'm justified, arguing that boundaries are necessary to protect mental health and stability. Others have said I should make an exception for family in crisis, emphasizing compassion over convenience. I understand both sides, but I know from past experience that compromising my space for someone else's emergency often leads to prolonged stress and tension. Sarah's persistence has started affecting my life outside our interactions. I feel guilty when friends ask why I haven't helped, and the constant pressure has left me anxious and exhausted. I've helped her research temporary housing, offered to contribute to short-term rentals, and assisted with apartment searches, but she continues to frame my refusal as cold and selfish. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she was evicted? I want to support her in meaningful ways without compromising my home, routines, and mental health. I've offered alternatives, compromises, and practical help, but she interprets my refusal as rejection. I feel caught between wanting to help and needing to preserve my stability, and I'm struggling with guilt, stress, and anxiety about the potential fallout. I've tried to communicate that my refusal is about boundaries and not lack of love or loyalty, but she continues to insist I'm being selfish. I feel like no matter what I do, I'll either let her down or compromise my own well-being. I want to support her responsibly without turning my home into a source of stress and conflict, but it feels impossible to strike the right balance. I don't know if standing firm makes me the asshole, and I'm emotionally drained from this situation. AITA for refusing to give my brother's fiancée a huge sum of money for her dream wedding, even though it might ruin our family relationship. I, 29F, come from a middle-class family. My younger brother, Tom, 27M, recently got engaged to his girlfriend of 5 years, Emily, 26F. Emily is a sweet person, but she has a very particular vision of a fairy tale wedding, which involve an extremely expensive venue, a live band, luxury catering, designer outfits, and floral arrangements that cost more than my car. Tom and Emily have both decent jobs, but they've already run into issues with budgeting for their wedding. They have about $20,000 saved between them, which Emily insists is not enough. Here's the thing. My family has always been financially comfortable, but not extravagantly wealthy. My parents are retired, living on a modest pension, and while they've helped my brother in the past with smaller things, they are absolutely not in a position to fund a massive wedding. That's where I come in, or rather, where Emily comes in. A few months ago, Emily approached me directly, without Tom being in the room, and asked if I could cover the difference for the wedding. She told me the total cost would be around $50,000, which would mean I would need to give them $30,000. I was shocked. I worked hard for my money and have student loans and my own apartment to maintain. I don't live extravagantly, but I'm not rolling in money either. I told Emily honestly that I couldn't commit to that kind of financial support. She responded with what I can only describe as a combination of disappointment and guilt-tripping. She said, "I thought you of all people would want to see me have the wedding of my dreams. Isn't that what sisters are for?" I tried explaining that I love Emily and Tom, and I want them to have a beautiful wedding, but that I have my own responsibilities and that they should plan within their means. I even offered to help with smaller, meaningful details like DIY decorations, helping coordinate RSVPs, or even helping them find a more affordable venue. Emily didn't take it well. She said she was very hurt and that I was putting money above family, which honestly stung. I told her I wasn't putting money above family. I was putting practical responsibility above recklessness. After this conversation, I tried to bring Tom into the discussion. I thought maybe he could mediate and reason with Emily. Tom agreed with me privately that the $50,000 wedding was unrealistic and he felt uncomfortable asking me for such a large amount. He even said he'd have been okay with a smaller wedding that fit their budget. But Emily has a tendency to be very persuasive, and she told Tom that I was refusing to be a supportive sister, and that this might be a deal breaker for their family relationship. Tom, being the peacekeeper, got caught in the middle. He wanted to defend me, but he also didn't want to upset Emily. Things got more complicated when my parents found out. Emily framed it as me refusing to support my brother's happiness and suggested that I was being selfish. My parents were upset, not at me, but at the tension between us. They reminded me that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime experiences and suggested I reconsider helping financially if I wanted to keep family peace. I stood my ground. I explained that I wasn't opposed to giving gifts for the wedding. I just wasn't going to give $30,000. They seemed to understand, but Emily was not convinced. Fast forward to the present. Emily has started excluding me from wedding planning discussions that she believes involve money. She has started posting about family members who truly support us on social media and tagged everyone except me. My parents are worried that this will create long-term family tension. Tom has been trying to be neutral, but I can tell he is frustrated because he wants everyone to be happy. I offered to contribute in other ways. I said I could help with the rehearsal dinner, DIY decorations, or even something like a meaningful gift that wasn't monetary. Emily rejected all of these offers, saying they were not enough and that the wedding isn't about frugality. It's about love and celebration. She also told Tom that my refusal is hurting the entire family dynamic. I tried to explain that the family dynamic is being hurt because someone is demanding more than they realistically can expect from others, but she didn't listen. Here's where I think the real conflict lies. Emily has said in private conversations with mutual friends that I am jealous or greedy because I won't pay for her wedding. Some friends have reached out to me, trying to convince me to reconsider, saying, "It's just money, and it's your brother. You can afford it if you really care." Honestly, I feel blindsided. I do care about my brother and Emily, but I also feel it's unreasonable to expect someone to give $30K to cover wedding expenses when it's outside their budget and comfort zone. I want to support them, but not at the expense of my own financial stability. I'm worried this is going to create permanent tension. Emily has implied that if I don't pay, I am not family, and I feel like she's trying to manipulate the situation to guilt me. I don't want to cut ties with my brother or his future wife, but I also don't want to give in to something that I can't realistically afford, and that feels wrong. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but I can tell they are disappointed. AITA for refusing to give my brother's fiancée $30,000 for her dream wedding. Even though it might cause family tension, I feel like I'm being responsible, but everyone else seems to think I'm being selfish. I love my brother, I love Emily, and I want to be part of their wedding, but I can't be the bank for a fairy tale. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where a fiancé expects unrealistic financial contributions from family members? How do you support a wedding without going broke or feeling pressured into an unreasonable obligation? AITA for refusing to let my brother stay at my house after he got evicted. Even though he says I'm being unsupportive, I, 39F, have a younger brother, Mark, 35M, who has always been somewhat irresponsible with money. He's had several jobs over the years, but has a habit of spending more than he earns, accumulating credit card debt, and living paycheck to paycheck. Despite this, we have a close relationship, and I've helped him out in the past with small amounts of money or advice on budgeting, which is occasionally appreciated and occasionally ignored. A few weeks ago, Mark called me in a panic. He had just been evicted from his apartment due to unpaid rent and claimed he had nowhere to go. He asked if he could move into my house temporarily while he figured things out. I live in a modest 3-bedroom home with my husband and our 2 children, ages 10 and 7. I was immediately hesitant because of our limited space and the fact that Mark has a history of staying longer than intended when he moves in with family. I explained to Mark that I couldn't have him move in permanently, but I offered alternatives, helping him find a short-term rental, assisting with a deposit or moving costs, helping him budget and plan for rent, and even letting him stay for 1 or 2 nights if he absolutely had nowhere else to go. I emphasized that my offer was temporary and limited because my house is set up primarily for my immediate family and our routines. Mark didn't take this well. He accused me of being selfish, saying that family is supposed to support each other in times of crisis. He argued that my refusal showed I didn't care about him and that I was prioritizing convenience over loyalty. I tried to remain calm and explain that helping him in ways that don't disrupt my household could be just as supportive, but he insisted that nothing short of letting him stay at my house would be acceptable. Over the next few days, Mark repeatedly contacted me, sometimes pleading and sometimes angry. He would say things like, "You have no idea what it's like to be me right now," or "If you were really my sister, you'd help me out." He even brought up past times when I had supported him emotionally, implying that I owed him this favor now. I reminded him that emotional support doesn't require compromising my family's stability and that lending my home indefinitely wasn't reasonable. Some family members got involved, with mixed opinions. A few said I should just let him stay to avoid family conflict, while others agreed that setting boundaries and refusing to host him long-term is reasonable. This made things even more stressful because I felt judged no matter what I decided. I considered compromise, such as letting him stay in the guest room for a few nights while he sorted things out, but I worried that once he moved in, it could extend indefinitely, and past experiences suggest he struggles to adhere to limits. I also thought about helping him financially with a deposit for a rental or temporary housing, but he insisted that staying at my house was easier and more comfortable. Since I refused, Mark has been distant and resentful. He has made several social media posts about family members who don't have your back and turn their back when you need them most, which I know are about me. I try to maintain communication, check in regularly, and offer practical support like searching for apartments and negotiating temporary leases, but he dismisses anything that isn't immediate access to my home. I feel guilty because I care deeply about Mark and want to help him get back on his feet, but I also know that allowing him to move in could create tension with my husband, disrupt my children's routines, and potentially damage our relationship in the long term. I want to help in practical and emotional ways that don't put my household at risk, but Mark interprets any limit as a personal slight or a lack of care. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after he got evicted, even though he says I'm being unsupportive and some family members think I should compromise. I want to support him, but I also have to protect my home, my husband's comfort, and my children's stability. This situation has caused tension between Mark, me, and our family. I'm trying to balance empathy and practical boundaries, but standing firm feels like the only responsible way to maintain both our relationship and my household. I hope there's a way to help him emotionally and practically without letting him move in, but right now, any refusal seems to be interpreted as a betrayal. I'm committed to helping him find a safe and sustainable solution, but I cannot sacrifice my household's well-being in the process. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after what happened with my cousin. So, this is a bit complicated, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Mark, 25M, who is getting married in a few months. He's marrying his high school sweetheart, Jenna, 26F, and to be honest, they've been together for over 7 years, so it's not a surprise that they're tying the knot. I've always been close with Mark, and we've shared most of our life milestones, so naturally, I expected to be fully involved in the wedding planning and, of course, the big day itself. The issue started with my cousin, Sam, 30M. Sam and I were close growing up, but over the past few years, we've drifted apart. He's always had a knack for drama, and while I usually let his antics slide, the last few months have made me seriously reconsider our relationship. Mark asked me to be the maid of honor, which was incredibly exciting. I started helping with dress shopping, decorations, and even the guest list. Everything was going smoothly until Mark's fiancée, Jenna, mentioned that Sam had been talking about the wedding in a very negative way. According to Jenna, Sam had made multiple comments like, "I don't know why Mark's even bothering with this wedding. It's going to be a disaster. And honestly, no one's going to have fun except him and Jenna, but you know how family drama goes." I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe he was just joking, but then more stories started surfacing. 2 weeks ago, Sam was supposed to attend a small rehearsal dinner at my parents' house. What I thought would be a casual, friendly gathering turned into a nightmare. Sam showed up late, obviously tipsy, and immediately started criticizing everything, from the way my mom set the table to the floral arrangements my brother and I had chosen. He made a snide comment about the food, saying it looked like a hospital cafeteria meal, which embarrassed my parents. Things escalated when he turned his attention to me. I was helping my mom in the kitchen, and he came in, laughed, and said, "Wow, you really think you're doing something important here, huh? Maid of honor, big deal. Who cares what you pick?" I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe he just needed a vent, but then he grabbed a glass of wine and started making loud, sarcastic remarks about every single guest, even my younger cousins. By the end of the evening, it was clear that Sam was drunk, rude, and completely disrespectful to everyone there. The final straw came when he made a comment about Mark and Jenna's relationship. He said something along the lines of, 7 years together, and you still think this is going to last? Honestly, I'm just here to watch it fail. Weddings are always a scam anyway. At that moment, I lost it. I told him to leave, and my parents had to physically escort him out. Sam was yelling about how I was overreacting and stormed out, slamming the door. After that night, I had a long conversation with Mark. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable having Sam at the wedding, especially if he was going to be toxic and ruin the day. Mark, surprisingly, agreed and said he didn't want any drama either, but when I mentioned this to my extended family, the situation exploded. My aunt and uncle called me selfish and said that I was playing favorites and breaking family bonds by excluding Sam. Some cousins messaged me directly, saying that Sam didn't deserve to be treated like this and that I was being dramatic and controlling. The real issue, though, came when my mom tried to mediate. She asked me to consider attending the wedding even if Sam was there, just for the sake of family unity. I explained that seeing him there, knowing how he behaves, would ruin the experience for me and possibly for others. I even offered to help make arrangements so that Sam wouldn't be directly involved in any major events during the wedding. My mom was clearly frustrated, and after several tense conversations, she said, "If you can't be civil and attend, maybe you shouldn't come at all." I spoke to Mark again. He told me he didn't want me to skip his wedding, but he also understood that Sam's presence was a huge trigger for me. He suggested maybe I could attend part of the day, like the ceremony, and leave before the reception. I thought about it, but the more I considered it, the more I realized I would be on edge the entire time. I decided I couldn't go, even partially. I sent Mark a long message explaining my reasons, apologizing for not being there, and making it clear that this had nothing to do with him or Jenna. I even offered to help with anything remotely logistical from afar, like sending out invitations or helping with decorations virtually. Mark responded, saying he was disappointed but understood. He told me that the important thing was that I support him emotionally and that I could still be involved in pre-wedding events that didn't include Sam. I thought things were resolved, but then the backlash from the rest of the family hit. Some of my cousins posted passive-aggressive comments on social media about family loyalty and how some people don't know how to behave at weddings. A few distant relatives have even sent me texts calling me rude and disrespectful for my decision. Now I feel torn. I know Mark understands, but I keep thinking about everyone else's judgment. Part of me feels guilty for not being there on what should be one of my brother's happiest days. On the other hand, I know that attending would be emotionally exhausting and could even cause a scene if Sam decides to act up. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of my cousin's behavior. AITA for refusing to let my friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she insists I owe her after everything she did to help me during college. This is going to be long, but I want to give the full context so people can understand why I feel conflicted. I, 33F, have a friend, Jenna, 32F, who has been in my life since high school. Over the years, we've supported each other through many challenges. When I went to college, Jenna helped me in ways I will never forget. She lent me money for tuition and textbooks, let me stay at her apartment for a couple of weeks during the summer when I couldn't afford my dorm, and gave me rides whenever I didn't have transportation. She was also there emotionally, helping me navigate family issues and breakups. I have always been extremely grateful for her support, and I've tried to repay her in small ways over the years, but she has never let me forget that she believes I owe her. A few months ago, Jenna went through a messy breakup and lost her apartment, due to financial difficulties. She called me in tears, saying she had nowhere to go and asking if she could move in temporarily while she got back on her feet. At the time, I was living with my partner, Adam, 34M, in a modest two-bedroom apartment. I work full-time, manage household responsibilities, and also volunteer a few evenings a week. I hesitated because I knew adding another adult long-term would be challenging, but I agreed to a short-term stay. I told her clearly that she needed to actively look for a job and an apartment while contributing to household chores. Jenna agreed. The first couple of weeks went smoothly. She stayed in the guest room, kept her area tidy, and seemed motivated to apply for jobs and apartments. I helped her update her resume and even applied for a few positions with her. I sent her rental listings, assisted with filling out applications, and gave advice on interviews. However, after about a month, it became clear she wasn't taking the situation seriously. She began sleeping in late, spending most of her days scrolling social media or binge-watching shows, and rarely applied for jobs. She also started leaving dirty dishes in the sink, piles of laundry in common areas, and personal belongings scattered throughout the apartment. She began inviting friends over frequently without asking, sometimes multiple people at a time, which disrupted our household and privacy. I tried multiple serious conversations with her. I reminded Jenna that the arrangement was temporary and that living here indefinitely was not an option. I explained that my household has routines, responsibilities, and a partner who needs privacy and space. I told her that continuing to live here without contributing or actively seeking independence would create stress and tension for everyone. Jenna became defensive, claiming that I was selfish and ungrateful for all the help she had given me in the past. She insisted that I owe her, and that refusing to let her stay long-term was cruel. She also implied that our friendship could be permanently damaged if I didn't allow her to stay. This situation has caused significant tension in my apartment. Adam is frustrated because our routines, meals, and private time have all been disrupted. Even small tasks like cooking, cleaning, or relaxing have become complicated because Jenna dominates common areas without consideration. Our cat has been stressed by the increased activity, which adds another layer of responsibility for both of us. I have tried multiple compromises. I offered to help with a rental deposit, suggested short-term sublets or Airbnb options, and even offered to extend her stay for a strictly defined period if she actively applied for jobs and apartments. She refused all alternatives, insisting that only living with me full-time would work. She has also involved mutual friends, telling them I was being cruel and refusing to help a friend in need, which led to even more pressure. Some friends contacted me, saying I should just let her stay because of everything she did for me in the past. I feel torn because I care about Jenna and want to support her, but I also feel manipulated. Giving in would not help her. It would allow her to avoid responsibility and likely create resentment on both sides. I've supported her emotionally, financially in small ways, and practically over the years, but living together indefinitely under these circumstances is not support. It is a burden. I'm also concerned about precedent. Allowing her to stay indefinitely without contributing or showing effort could encourage her to rely on me for other aspects of her life, permanently altering our relationship and household dynamics. I've tried maintaining clear boundaries, offered practical alternatives, and communicated respectfully, but nothing seems to satisfy her. So, AITA for refusing to let my friend move in with me indefinitely, even though she insists I owe her after everything she did to help me during college. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in after she lost her job, even though she says I'm being selfish. I, 38F, have a younger sister, Claire, 33F, who has always had a more spontaneous lifestyle than I do. She frequently changes jobs, moves cities, and makes big life decisions on impulse. I'm more cautious and structured, especially since I live with my husband and our 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, in a 3-bedroom apartment. We have routines in place that keep our household running smoothly, and I'm very protective of our home environment. A few weeks ago, Claire called me in tears. She had lost her job unexpectedly and said she couldn't afford rent in her apartment anymore. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured things out. At first, I felt torn because I love my sister and want to support her, but my first instinct was to consider our household's needs and my daughter's well-being. I explained that I couldn't accommodate a long-term stay, but offered alternatives, helping her find a short-term rental, assisting with a deposit, helping her search for new job opportunities, and letting her stay for 1 or 2 nights only if absolutely necessary. Claire reacted poorly. She said I was being selfish and cold, that families should help each other in times of need, and that I was prioritizing my comfort over her crisis. She implied that if I were a good sister, I would let her stay without hesitation. I reminded her that my refusal wasn't about not caring, but about maintaining a safe and stable home for my family. I also emphasized that there were other ways I could help her, like financial support for a temporary place or helping her find job leads. Over the next few days, Claire's messages became increasingly persistent. She alternated between pleading, guilt-tripping, and anger. She reminded me of times she had supported me emotionally in the past, suggesting that I owed her this favor. She accused me of being unsupportive and turning my back on her. I tried to remain calm and reiterate my offers to help in ways that wouldn't disrupt my household, but she dismissed all alternatives and insisted that living with me was the only acceptable solution. Some of our mutual friends and family got involved. A few said I should just let her stay to avoid conflict, while others agreed that setting boundaries is reasonable given the situation. This has left me feeling torn because I want to support my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my family's comfort and routine. I tried to explain that short-term support and guidance could be just as helpful as letting her move in, but Claire refused to accept anything less than living under the same roof. I considered compromise. I thought about letting her stay in the guest room for a few nights to give her a buffer while she secured temporary housing. However, based on past experiences, I worried that a temporary stay could easily stretch longer, create tension with my husband, and disrupt Sophie's routine. I also considered helping her financially to cover a temporary rental, but she insisted that it wasn't the same as staying in my home. Since I refused, Claire's been distant and curt in her messages. She has made social media posts about friends and family who don't step up when you need them most and choose convenience over loyalty, which I know are about me. I've tried to maintain communication, check in regularly, and offer practical support, but she dismisses any help that doesn't involve living with me. I feel guilty because I want to be there for my sister, but I also know that compromising my home stability and my family's routines isn't reasonable. Allowing her to move in could cause long-term tension and make me feel resentful, which could damage our relationship. I'm trying to help her in sustainable ways that don't disrupt our household, but she interprets any limitation as personal rejection. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in after losing her job. Even though she says I'm being selfish and some family members think I should compromise, I want to support her emotionally and practically, but I cannot sacrifice my household's stability and my daughter's well-being. This situation has caused tension between us and within our family. I'm trying to balance empathy and practical boundaries, but standing firm feels like the only responsible way to maintain both the relationship and my household. I hope there's a way to help Claire without letting her move in, but right now, any refusal is interpreted as a betrayal. I want to help her find a safe and sustainable solution, but I cannot compromise my family's stability in the process. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after discovering she excluded my husband and me. I, 34F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 30F. Growing up, we were close at times, but often clashed over everything from clothes to school projects. After college, we drifted apart, largely because our personalities are polar opposites. I'm more introverted and career-focused, while she thrives on socializing and being the center of attention. Despite our differences, I've always tried to support her milestones, attending her college graduations, birthday parties, and other major events. Emily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Ryan, 32M. When she first told me, I congratulated her and asked about the wedding plans. She mentioned she wanted a destination wedding in Hawaii, which sounded lovely, but immediately said it would be a small, intimate affair limited to family and a handful of friends. At that point, she also casually added that the guest list had to be carefully curated due to the resort's policies and cost constraints. I accepted this and didn't press too much, figuring it would be fine. A few weeks later, Emily sent out the formal wedding invitations. My heart sank when I opened ours and noticed it was addressed only to me, without my husband, Mark, 36M. Mark and I have been married for 6 years, and he's been a constant part of my life. Excluding him felt like a personal affront. I called Emily immediately to clarify, hoping it was an oversight. Emily sounded frustrated over the phone. She said the wedding was small, and she had to make hard decisions about guests. She explained that her fiancé had a few distant relatives he wanted to include, and the resort package allowed only a certain number of guests, so she had to exclude some plus ones. She added that since Mark didn't have a close relationship with her fiancé, she decided he wouldn't be included. I tried to reason with her, saying that as my husband, he was automatically part of my life events, and that attending without him would feel strange. Emily countered that it was not about me, but about the logistics, and that she wanted only immediate family, plus those with strong connections to Ryan. I was upset, but tried to stay calm. I reminded her that excluding spouses from major family events is unusual and hurtful, especially when the wedding was in a family context. She accused me of overreacting and said I was making it about myself instead of respecting her decisions. She also pointed out that she had invited Mark to her bridal shower virtually, which she said was enough participation on his part. I spent the next week debating what to do. I asked around to friends and even consulted etiquette resources. Everyone agreed that it's generally considered inappropriate to exclude a spouse unless there are extenuating circumstances, like divorced parents or a limited children-only wedding. I couldn't understand why Emily would intentionally make me attend a wedding without my husband, especially since I had always been supportive of her events. When I told Mark about the invitation, he was understandably upset. He suggested I either decline the invitation or talk to Emily again and insist that he be included. I tried to compromise, saying I could attend alone if she promised it wouldn't be awkward or that I would not bring it up in front of others. Emily flatly refused both options, saying the guest list was final and she was tired of negotiating it. After much deliberation, I decided not to attend. I sent Emily a message explaining that while I loved her and wanted to celebrate her wedding, I could not attend without my husband because it would feel wrong to be there alone. I also emphasized that this decision was about preserving my relationship with my spouse, not punishing her. I offered to celebrate with her before or after the wedding in some other way, like a small family dinner or a virtual toast. The response I received was immediate and intense. Emily accused me of being selfish and said that I was overreacting by making a huge deal out of something trivial. She told me she couldn't believe I was willing to skip her wedding over mere logistics, and implied that I was choosing my husband over her. She also posted a lengthy message in our family group chat, subtly shaming me for prioritizing Mark and questioning my support as a sister. My parents are in the middle. They understand that the wedding is Emily's choice, but they also feel that excluding Mark was unnecessary and hurtful. They didn't pressure me to attend, but they suggested I at least try to smooth things over with Emily. I tried calling her again to explain my perspective calmly, but she refused to answer and said she would handle it her way. Since then, there has been a lot of tension. Emily has limited our communication to texts about logistics unrelated to the wedding. Mark and I have been avoiding family events to reduce conflict, which has strained our relationship with my parents as well. Some extended family members have taken Emily's side, saying it's her wedding, she can invite whoever she wants, while others sympathize with me, saying it's unreasonable to expect me to attend such a major event alone. I feel torn. On one hand, I understand that a wedding is a personal choice and the bride has the right to make guest list decisions. On the other hand, I feel that excluding a spouse from a family wedding, especially when that spouse has always been supportive, is hurtful and sends a message that my marriage isn't valued. I also feel guilty about disappointing my parents and other family members who wanted me and Mark to attend together. I haven't spoken to Emily since I declined, and she hasn't reached out beyond curt messages. I don't know if I overreacted or if I handled it the right way. I've been reflecting on the situation, and part of me worries that this will permanently damage our relationship. But I also feel I need to set a boundary that preserves my marriage and self-respect. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she excluded my husband? I feel like I made a principled stand, but I can't help wondering if I'm being unreasonable or selfish in prioritizing my spouse over my sister's special day. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.